Hello, my name is Michael Holley, and I chose to research the intersection of older adults and incarceration during end of term and post-prison release. Over the course of this action project, I've studied the narratives of people who are a part of or interact with the incarcerated older adult population in various capacities. The first-person narratives that came from incarcerated inmates, ex-offenders, and their caregivers were especially valuable in understanding the near invisible needs that they deal with on a daily basis. My topic appeared to have two core avenues of study: implications of incarceration on older adults and the reintegration phase. The first focus is on the implications of incarceration on physical, psychological, and psychosocial health, as well as how the symptoms that result are exacerbated in the older adult population, often resulting in accelerated aging. Examples given in first-person narrative interviews from incarcerated older adults describe many of these implications. First-person narratives of incarcerated older adults. Incarcerated older adults report a severe lack of adequate physical and mental health care while in prison. To paraphrase aging inmate Rosa at 49, "I had fibroid tumors on my ovary and on my uterus. I almost died twice by hemorrhaging. I couldn't get anybody in the health department to help me." Similarly, aging inmate Patrick, 54, was unable to get assistance for his chronic back pain while incarcerated. "They took me to the hospital a few times concerning my back, but they didn't take care of the problem. They didn't want to pay for the medication." Patrick also reported symptoms of PTSD after being released from a 21-year sentence. What I was telling you before when I first came home was that I would see visions and stuff. And I used to see sometimes I thought I was still in jail. I don't hear that no more. But 6 months later, at Patrick's third interview, the anxiety had returned and he had initiated psychological therapy for the first time in his life. Another inmate, Jason, 45, recalls when he was unable to get help for several hours after he tried to report that his cellmate had hung himself next to him while he slept. Jason denied being bothered by a dead body, but certainly having your cellmate's mental health ignored to the point that they hung themselves next to you, and then having your own reports ignored, demonstrates how little effort correctional officers really put into the mental health care of inmates. Older inmates on verbal abuse by correctional officers. Verbal abuse by correctional officers is commonplace. Described as an ongoing condition of incarceration, verbal abuse was reported in nearly every inmate interview I read. Older inmates are often targeted for the signs of aging, making them particularly susceptible to verbal abuse. Mary, 56, gives an example during her time in incarceration. And I quote, "They, COs, treat you horribly. I've seen women up there that have the opportunity to get dentures, and when they get to go speak to the CO and ask them questions, they'll make fun of them, like making little facial expressions or calling them names. And these are people that are in their late 30s and 40s and 50s. Although she claims that not all COs, correction officers, are this bad, older inmate Mary recalls many sickening insults given by correctional officers. To list a few, and I quote, "You're going to come back again. Once you come the first time, you'll be back. You ain't SHIT. Your life is in the gutter. That's all you are. You're a piece of crap." Extra hurtful, "You fat pig, look at you." If you're anything like me, that was pretty hard to hear. It was pretty hard to read. So you can imagine how it contributes to the mental illness and the unsafe, extreme stressors present in the prison settings. The accelerated aging crisis. Every article that I've researched discusses the crisis of accelerated aging at some level or another. It is common knowledge among social workers in this community that incarceration triggers a measurable stress response, responsible for increased rates of physical and psychological deterioration, which manifest as biologically aging up to 10 to 15 years past your numerical age. This means if you go into prison at 45 years old and serve a 10-year sentence, your numerical age will be 55, but your biological age will be 65 to 70 years old. It is for this reason 55 and up is the federal definition for geriatric age post-incarceration. And many other places use the age of 50, or in some cases, even 45 to identify geriatric age in the prison population. According to the Journal of American Geriatric Society, a combination of the extreme stressors present in prison combined with poor health practices and living conditions, increased prevalence of past violence, trauma, and substance abuse all contribute to the increased health risks and rates of multimorbidity that lead to accelerated aging. Here we have examples of accelerated aging ranging from prisoners who experience solitary confinement for multiple months to some well-known accelerated aging phases of American presidents. Older prisoner population, rapid growth. The National Institute of Corrections and the National Commission on Correctional Healthcare uses 50 and 55 to define where geriatric age begins for the older prisoner population. Despite the number of incarcerated individuals shrinking across the US, the incarcerated older adult population is rapidly growing. According to the United States Census Bureau in 2019, by the year 2034, the population of older Americans will reach an estimated 77 million, and 500,000 of those older Americans will be passing through the criminal justice system annually. Here is an older inmates on the rise infographic. Between the years of 1999 and 2016, there was a 300% increase in the incarceration of adults aged 55 and up. According to the Urban Institute Project, an estimated 28% of the federal prison population consisted of older adults 50 and up in 2019. The second focus of my action project is the reintegration phase. Looking at how the effects of incarceration hamper an individual's ability to function and actively participate in society, the reintegration phase involves understanding local resources and tools that can be used to assist in successful reintegration. Many older adults reintegrate near retirement age. Having a felony prevents them from applying for most jobs and housing. Depending on their crime, they may even be turned away from ideal geriatric care facilities. This puts incarcerated older adults at a unique intersection where they are particularly vulnerable to financial insecurity, which can often snowball into food insecurity and eventually homelessness. This image is titled Prisoner. It was taken in 2011 for SLIRE, the Center for Reintegration of Prisoners. Its motto, no reintegration, no freedom. Recidivism and homelessness, the challenges of meeting parole. Recidivism is the tendency of a convicted criminal to reoffend. In psychosocial needs of released long-term incarcerated older adults, all key informants identified homelessness as a primary barrier to successful reintegration and meeting the demands of parole. Although addressing the aging crisis in the US criminal justice healthcare tells us that reintegrating older adults present one of the lowest rates of recidivism of all ex-offenders. Due to multimorbidity, lack of social support, and limited sources of income, they are at an intersection that makes them uniquely vulnerable to becoming homeless. The grass is always greener on the other side is not a phrase that you expect to be used when referring to going back into prison. Unfortunately, it is a reality for many ex-offending older adults, as one 72-year-old releasee explains. Sometimes it's just easier to do something to go back in to prison. You get hungry being on the streets, and lots of us old timers, we don't have family anymore that'll take us in. I know it sounds crazy, but the stress of all the things you got to do and being hungry sometimes makes prison look greener. Three key life factors necessary for successful reintegration. Understanding the experience of incarcerated and older releasees is crucial for social workers to form a successful reintegration plan. Research shows that three key life factors must be considered: psychosocial, networks, and resources. Psychosocial needs involve the psychological and social aspects. A broad spectrum of complaints that affect an individual's functioning in their day-to-day life. Psychosocial factors that post-incarcerated older adults often struggle with include social reintegration, loneliness, social support, work discrimination, social stigma, and housing accessibility. Access to resources looks first at the basic needs of survival, such as food and water security, shelter, and then financial security, followed by looking at what programs a post-incarcerated person has access to. Programs could include a variety of reentry services, food and clothes pantries, organizations who find job and housing opportunities for felons, and programs that help drug offenders like Narcotics Anonymous or AAA. Networks surrounding the client. After release from prison, most older adults don't have a support network or community connections. 65% of the geriatric prison population are serving lengthy prison sentences for violent crimes, resulting in a lack of support among family and friends for older inmates. In many cases, their family and social connections may have even already passed by the time that they get out. Brief overview on EcoMap tool. The EcoMap tool is likened to a 2D social solar system model, where the sun represents an individual in need of guidance at the center, with other important people and institutions depicted like planets within the 4 subsystems: microsystem, mesosystem, exosystem, and macrosystem. Social service providers can use the EcoMap to determine resources and interventions necessary for resolution of stressors among older adults in the reintegration process. The EcoMap was originally developed for a child welfare to assist children in navigating the complex relationships in their lives across environmental systems. Therefore, it translates well to the incarcerated older adult community, a group who hasn't had the opportunity to learn and understand modern technology and struggles with relearning how to manage social relationships. The EcoMap marries and builds off of 2 older approaches to social work: ecological systems and ecological perspective theory, which come to environment equals person. Here we have an EcoMap example utilizing fictional character Walter Jackson, developed in navigating reentry with older adults using ecosystems perspective and the EcoMap. The 4 subsystems, microsystem, mesosystem, exosystem, and macrosystem, represent the quality of a relationship at different levels of distance from the individual. Lines and symbols are used to communicate the nature of the relationships. According to the article, lines can represent strong, reciprocal, strained, or even discontinued relationships. Community resource list, local and federal. Local resources: the Oregon Reentry List, primary source. Marion County Reentry Information, main page. Justice Reinvestment Grant Application. Helping Hands overview page. Helping Hands Emergency Shelter and Reentry Program Services. Federal resources: Help for Felons, VOA Federal Reentry Service. Local community resource: the Marion County Reentry Initiative, led by the Justice Reinvestment Council, who is a part of the Community Corrections Division. The Justice Reinvestment Council, JRC, heads a collaborative effort between law enforcement, education, community corrections, health, and nonprofit agencies to assist the reintegration process. The goals of justice reinvestment are to reduce recidivism through evidence-based practices while increasing public safety and holding offenders accountable. JRC also serves as an advisory board to the sheriff, working together to focus on reducing recidivism rates through evidence-based practice by allocating funds and resources to programs that more effectively assist the reentry process. JRC promises consistent governance, increased community awareness, sustainability, and especially the identification and removal of barriers to inmate reentry and prison diversion success. Local community reentry facilities. Helping Hands Emergency Shelter and Reentry Program Services. Helping Hands is a local program with 11 facilities based around Portland, Multnomah County, and coastal Oregon cities, including Calstop County, Lincoln City, Tillamook County, and Yamhill County. Helping Hands describes themselves on the Oregon Reentry Service List as a place that strives to meet the needs of people who are in crisis situations. We make it possible for someone to walk in our doors without a penny and receive the help that they need to be successful. This makes them an especially valuable tool to reintegrating older adults experiencing financial security and homelessness. Those who choose to benefit from Helping Hands services start in their emergency clinic for up to 4 days, which is open to anyone with the exclusion of sex offenders, as it is an institution that serves domestic violence victims, women, and children. In the emergency clinic, clients will be met with hot food, a place to shower and sleep, and access to crisis counselors while they create a unique individualized reentry plan for each client's specific needs. Federal resource. Help for Felons. Help for Felons believes that record expungement is the best path for successful reintegration. Help for Felons is a government website dedicated to providing resources to ex-offenders. For those who are financially incapable of an expungement, Help for Felons assists with access to local felony-friendly jobs and housing opportunities. According to Help for Felons, all too often criminal records hamper a felon's earning potential. You may think that having your record expunged is monetarily unaffordable. Well, it may cost several $1,000s. That is a small price to pay for the ability to obtain any job that you are qualified for. And with that, I have my vocabulary page going over multimorbidity, used throughout to mean people with multiple health conditions, polypharmacy, the simultaneous use of multiple drugs to treat a single ailment or condition, recidivism, the tendency of a convicted criminal to reoffend, psychosocial, involving both psychological and social aspects, the broad spectrum of all complaints which are not strictly medical or somatic, psychopathology, the study of psychological and behavioral dysfunction occurring in mental illness or in social dysfunction. Also, such dysfunction features of people's mental health considered collectively mental or behavioral disorder. And my resources pages. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I appreciate you. Have a great day. Please don't be too long. Oh no, I'm still recording.